The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of what I am forever. What's happening? Benton here. Just made our delivery. First delivery. Now we're headed to Jackson, Mississippi. For the second drop. And then I guess they said something about coming back to Florida. Deadhead to Florida. And then I don't even know if I'm loading today. Probably tomorrow. Who knows? It is Friday, though. Right? Yeah. Got paid. This is probably more of an audio blog. No pressure. Probably no sermon. And, I psychologically refuse to identify as tired most of the time, but they've been putting a whooping on old Benton. I slept, I think, a solid 7 hours last night. And, starting to get my second wind. Starting to. And now I guess this is the time everybody around here goes to work, so I'm waiting to pull out on the side street. So bear with me. Might be here 10 minutes. Maybe not. They all come in clumps. Silly humans. Local meth heads, looks like. Roaming around. The woman in charge, of course. She's leading the way. Got her fella following behind, rather. Lost. Run down Pensacola side of town. I don't know if this is the worst side of town. I always have kind of appreciated kind of grimy, other side of the tracks type areas for whatever reason. We're not too far from, Destin, places like that. And when I was a youngin' growing up in Arkansas, if people took vacations, this is just about the only place anybody ever came. Just this part of Florida. We had family friends that had moved to Pensacola, so I've been here a bunch of times. To Pensacola as a youth. Where's my trash can? The dang eggs got me. Egg leavings on my face there. No trash can to throw them in. Yeah, I never did enjoy the feeling of being in just a big old line of lemmings headed to work. This is what this is this morning. Everybody's just kind of going the same places all at the same time. Because I can already tell this area, if it's jumping, whoever lives around here, that ain't going to be probably till closer to noon. This is, something these dispatchers will never understand. This could be 20 minutes just trying to get back to the interstate sometimes. Oh man. Despite what my intuition was telling me, I knew I had to take a 30-minute break yesterday. So I stopped in at a Walmart north side of Chattanooga. My gut, right before I exited, my intuition said don't do it, but I already had it mapped out where I could get in and out. I'm telling you, man, the most annoying, worst drivers are the ones who identify as the most conservative or MAGA. It's terrible. So, dealt with some traffic, which there shouldn't have been traffic. Some of it's the way the area is designed, but we got in there, got out real easy, except everybody in one line to get onto the interstate. Now, I could have went around everybody and squeezed in, but I try not to do that. And now we get into, because of the big line of cars waiting to get through the red lights, you got people wanting to come out of those businesses. Maybe there was a Starbucks or something, whatever those businesses were. And then something about these people where they have to, like they have to be real nice and let everybody in. And, then we get to the concept of, only let people in, only let them in on a red. Don't let anybody in on a green. And so they didn't understand that. And what that led to was maybe 3 cars getting through on every green, because we all got to be, culturally, we all got to be nice to each other, and then there's no trust. So when the one car stops and provides plenty of space for whoever's getting let in, it takes like 45 seconds while everybody waves at each other and waves each other on, and meanwhile, there's no trust, between, so everybody's just ate up that if they, like they're just going to get crashed into by the person they're making eye contact with who's waving them ahead. They're hesitant and fearful in what's going to happen here, And I'm on people in, let them in on the red. Once it turns green, the only mission is we got to get through the light. That's it should be, this idea of we're all in this together. Well, no, we're not. Not what I'm seeing. So I sat through that motherfucker like 3 times. Finally, every time it turned green, I just started getting on the air horn. It's like, what are y'all doing? This is crazy. And, again, fear, guilt, and shame. It's not that they're so loving and want these people to be able to pull out of these businesses. It's, the idea of losing face or, getting in trouble, or maybe somebody they know sees them, not letting somebody in and not letting somebody into traffic. And it is nice not to be angered by such things, but just like, really? This is what we're doing. And there really wasn't even traffic. You had other wide open lanes. I realized at a certain point that I could have just went around the whole thing and got on the interstate. But by the time I figured that out, it was too late. People, man. I guess that's the forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, right? Imagine being in a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions and behaving that way. But yeah, it's all about efficient production. Everybody goes out and gets in an automobile and does things more or less as inefficiently as possible. As we have the person who's been riding behind me slow as fuck. And then, of course, the moment I speed up, for some reason that makes them jump into the fast lane, but then they slow down, which is bizarre. I guess they just want to ride with me. And I know it gets annoying when I describe the traffic. This does say a lot about where just people are psychologically, that they behave this way. Because I'm now going about the speed I was going before I sped up, and they're still having a lot of trouble passing. But what was it about when I sped up that it immediately caused them to pop out from behind my trailer, which I actually didn't even know they were there? And now they're in front of me going 62. But the first time I was going 62, they were happy to just hang out back there. I mean, these are not conscious beings, folks. Like, that's not life. That's not a person with a life. Now, they're performing, right? There's a performance, and there's a biography, and there's a collection of experiences. And, probably they live in a house or an apartment, and maybe they have a significant other and brothers and sisters, and, maybe they're a parent. But, that their consciousness is somewhere else, probably off in cyberspace, most likely. So we'll just go 62. I mean, in a 70. Right. And then I guess Florida has, I don't know if they have rec marijuana, but, half of everybody's probably baked to the gills, medical marijuana or whatever. So we'll just slow roll it all the way out of town, I guess. Better being in a big clusterfuck of cars. And then there they are right in front of me, just in a formation, flying in formation, slow rolling so they can look at their phones. But keep talking about that, be a productive member of society, and, as if I owe a debt to this world of death. What I am can't owe a debt to death. That's not possible. It ain't possible for the supreme authority, and I'm not saying that's right, walk the perfected righteous path that lies within. Supreme authority, source of all life, substance, meaning. That can't ever be kind of lost my train of thought because we have yet another person who's just fallen in love with the ass end of this trailer. But yeah, it's to, sign oneself up to a system, have a meaning, right? How could that ever have a meaning, in relation to what I am? It can't. It's not possible. They say, well, that sounds nihilistic. Well, that is nihilism. That is nihilism by definition. Because there's something that's called a philosophy and it's been given a name and we've been told that it's not valid. That doesn't make it true. That doesn't make it true. And I've done all the rushing I'm probably likely to do. So if they wonder why it's taking me so long to get there, I'm going to be like, look, man, based on the way these people are driving, I'm just going to drive 55, man. Y'all don't like it. I don't know what to tell you. This is crazy out here. And this is supposed to be rush hour. Remember, these folks are ostensibly on their way to work, almost all of them. Baked to the gills, looking at their phones. They're on whatever psych meds they're on. They're blissed out. But let Benton join society. Not that it's possible. Yeah. Benton is now, obligated. Yeah. What I am can't ever be obligated to a world of death within the context of games of lies. That's not possible. That's impossible. So anything that seeks, anything external to me that seeks to, operate based on the idea of meaning through that mechanism, that is invalid. There can't ever be a proper meaning there. And in fact, I would argue it's predatory. I would argue that it's, it's actually the being submitting themselves to being preyed upon. by a system of things that is dead. That's its nature. Now, yeah, can something that's dead seem to be alive? Certainly. That's where we get into the animated death warmed over side of things. Yeah, there are no others. Well, there you go, mental pancakes. And what I would say is, well, there's not, in the same way there's no Benton. So if there's no Benton, how can there be a mental pancakes? How can there be these two nice fellas where I just delivered? Meanwhile, my dispatcher let it slip that I guess a lot of the drivers who've already been to this place consider whoever works there to be jerks and assholes. But see, I'm from a culturally similar area, so I know how to cut through all of that. And not that we're going to be buddies, but I know how to interact with them in a way to, help move things along. Right. But that's not, again, if what I know to be true is true, and what I am as part of it is, again, it's an indivisible force, and it can't be individuated only via delusion. So within the context of the delusion, in a way, there are no others. Now, the problem is for undeveloped individuals, if they, subscribe to such a view, that could be a way to do harm, right? That could be seen as a way to prey upon other people. That could be seen as a way to sort of dismiss the concerns and the feelings of others. Well, what I am doesn't do any of that because it doesn't know anything about that. So only when improperly identified with this system of things in the world of death and the game of lies is the being even able to do those things, to cause harm or to create conflict or strife with other people. See, but that way of thinking, to many people, they will begin to make sense of it, as, oh, well, now it's, a Clockwork Orange ultra violence or whatever. They're just free to kind of do whatever they want. It's like, well, in a way, people are free to do what they want in a way, but not without consequence, meaning the realm will treat those people and deal with those people, within the context of delusion, in specific ways as we crash into gigantic potholes. Yeah, we're leaving Florida. Hurry back to the free state of Florida. It's Alabama state line. Sweet home Alabama, it says. Oh, there goes Honda. Looks like they lost their ball joint. Broke down on the other side of the road there. So in reality, it's all about me. So this idea of main character syndrome, it's all about Benton and internal meaning. But then, you got blessing and curse. So in order to bring forth the blessing, make the tree good, that the fruit may be, brought forth, Christians, what that's actually going to require is to be almost completely self-interested, but in ways where the vast majority of the time I will be treating people properly, and not preying upon them and vampirically, sucking out their essence, right? But then within the context of the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, to even work as a truck driver, is to sign myself up to a program of, in the case of this company, being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed towards ever more productivity while being given rhetorical lip service that, well, we're not going to push you. And it's like, well, you can't, because I already pushed myself. And when I need to, I'll just be like, hey, we're done. We're done for now. I'll let you know. I'm taking a 34. I'll let you know when I'm ready to work. If they don't like it, they don't like it. But old Benton here is competitive enough that he likes to push the envelope, but then it's kind of up to the company if they plan out a bunch of loads for me without finding out if their driver's physically capable of doing those loads. And whose problem is that? It's not really my problem. I'm game, If I'm able to go, I'm going. When it's game time, if I'm able to perform, I perform. But we're past the point of me being able to fight traffic. I'm happy to cruise for 4 hours and 12 minutes to make this delivery, but I ain't fighting a bunch of bozos all the way there. It's just not going to happen. Fatigue is a factor. And one of the Arkansas Razorbacks' legendary coaches, Nolan Richardson, and his hallowed 40 minutes of hell style of basketball, Nolan's quote is, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Well, and that's true until the being transcends fatigue. And then back to Krishnamurti, who would say, well, that's not really, fatigue's not a problem. The problem is when the being doesn't understand and accept that they are in fact fatigued, if they are in fact experiencing a sensation or a state of fatigue. Right. I went into like a full-on trance yesterday, which I think was a good thing. It's probably, my mind probably needed to rest, but it got a little strange towards the end of yesterday's driving. Got a little strange. And then, rhetorically, Mental Pancake saying, how are we to treat others? And of course, that's the royal we, of course, in the context of, in a context, there are no others, but that is the golden rule. If it was 6 a.m. and my job was to unload trucks and to talk to grumpy ass, cranky ass truck drivers, well, I would want whoever shows up to be affable and gregarious and, just, even if it comes across as somewhat fake and phony, right? It's sort of just, maybe none of us want to be here doing this, but we're here. We might as well get it done as painlessly as possible, right? Might as well. And then so you have the world of death says, well, shit rolls downhill. So you got truck drivers who, most truck drivers will just sort of let themselves be whipped and driven and pushed, driven forward, right? Yeah, mule, yeah, right? And so then what happens is they're driven to these deliveries a lot of the time. And then this comes back to the fact that, you can't have an authoritarian government without an authoritarian populace. So then the driver gets to the delivery and wants to, now they want to try to drive whoever's doing the unloading. Well, that's not the golden rule. See, does the driver want to be ridden hard and put away wet by the company? Well, that may be what they're tolerating. That's what Benton's tolerating to some extent, but that's not, doesn't make it proper. So why would I show up at this place and try to hurry them the fuck up. So what I typically do is just like, hey man, I'm not in a hurry. I realize we're just now getting here. This place first thing in the morning. We're just now getting here. You know, I don't give a fuck, and I don't. It takes however long it takes. I live in the truck. I'm going to be in that truck no matter what. Because I've been to places where I could tell they were trying to spiritually attack me by just kind of almost rubbing my nose in it when I first got to the facility. Basically, like, you're going to be here forever, more or less. And probably they dealt with angry trucker after angry trucker. It's like, I'm like, oh, I live in the truck. I said, you can't do nothing to me. I'm in that truck no matter what y'all do to me. And actually, every once in a while, there's a facility that won't let you stay in the truck. I mean, beyond that, there's nothing they can do to me. It's like, yeah, unless y'all make me go hang out in the waiting area. But COVID pretty much put an end to all of that foolishness. That always felt a little punitive. So I'm like, y'all know I got everything, I'm all set up in that truck. I don't know why y'all want me in here. But, probably somebody drove off a dock with somebody with the forklift driver in the trailer or whatever a couple of times. And then they said, no more of this. Probably. So part of it is to have manners and politeness, but we're not going to become friends, right? I don't live there. I may never come back. I have no idea. Who knows? Again, I'm not bitten in the context of the realm, and the performance and all of this is not even promised tomorrow. So, and I think people, there have been some positives coming out of the pandemic. I think a lot of folks have realized that, even though humans do form these connections quite easily, you got a lot of like motherfuckers that are not psychopathic or sociopathic, but who have some of those antisocial personality traits where if I'm ever to form some sort of bond with another person, it doesn't happen for me right away. It happens for me over time. But the vast majority of humans, do seemingly bond quite quickly. And so I know in the past, I think maybe, I would unknowingly, people might get hurt because of just how I come across in kind of a charming, affable, attractive. And I don't mean physically attractive, just somebody you might want to be around. And as opposed to some other folks. But then, so they sort of have an idea. And then you get into expectations around, well, what are future interactions going to be like? It's like, well, there may not be any future interactions. And, especially in the past, well, I don't know, man. Maybe maybe I show up in a different way next time. Right. I may not be capable of showing up completely positively in all of this. And, that's changed with the unlocking the achievement of true knowledge of self. That's changed to some extent. But I still have my moments from time to time. They don't last, and they had already become infrequent. But I'll have an autistic freak out here and there. But usually it ends up being something that needs to be said anyway. Typically, or something that needs to be addressed. But there's certainly, I think the recognition is becoming to be there as far as, well, what we thought was this wonderful society is in fact it's garbage, and it's always been garbage, and it's always going to be garbage until individuals, internally bootstrap. But then maybe there is a reset, in a golden age, and maybe this is a comparatively dark age in a timeline. Maybe whatever this realm is, maybe it resets at a certain point, and then that ushers in a golden age, because people are, the systems would not be in place if the thing reset to a certain earlier level. Maybe there's not as many sophisticated mechanisms to, brainwash and lull people to sleep from day one, to prey upon them. And it's important to realize, I would say at this point, almost every moment of everybody's day is involved in predation, predatory, whether that's preying upon others or being preyed upon or fending off people who are trying to prey upon, the being, the royal us, you know. But, and I've said before, because I think people have been confused, because yeah, Benton is an asshole. I come from a long line of fucking assholes, but anybody can have manners. Anybody can be polite and have manners. Like if you look at movies historically, like the supervillain is usually pretty fucking well mannered, generally. But then they're horrible, awful, people also. And at some point they're just being diabolical and mean and ugly and all of this. Yeah, but that doesn't preclude them from having manners. Anybody can have manners and be polite. So I think folks are finally starting to figure out not assign too great of a value to the politeness and the niceness, because it ain't for me. I don't give a fuck. That's for the other person, because to honor what I am is to say, well, empathetically to say, well, what is better for this other person? And that's not always clear. It may not be the best thing to treat them with manners because they might get the wrong idea. However, that may be based on their own lack of progress. Maybe they could figure out, oh, okay, well, now we see the levels of phoniness a little easier, right? Whereas in the past, maybe people didn't see the levels of phoniness. But whatever that is even if it seems phony, it is contagious. I can get a smile out of people sometimes where otherwise there may not be one. And it's not that I'm trying to, it's a way of being and performing. And then they either respond to that or they don't. Or more, they respond to it however they want to. I don't give a shit if I'm affable and uh, upbeat and they're not. Who cares? And if people have, culturally had a lot of negative experiences or haven't had a lot of experiences with a certain culture, well, then if the truck driver comes into the situation just assuming that it's, oh man, it's going to be a repeat of the last time I dealt with these similar type of folks, well, that's a mistake. Because I understand, because of how I grew up culturally, that if I go to a horrible food warehouse and somewhere in Louisiana and it's all people who culturally might seem similar to the people where I'm at here, well, that has nothing to do with how these individuals react, respond, and behave. It has nothing to do with it. And that is to be prejudiced, right? So I don't ever carry that forward. Although I am a little prejudiced against the white folks sometimes. I will admit to that. Certain types of white folks, anyway. I guess that's okay. If it ain't, it ought to be. And now the government's stealing so much money from the road projects. You got a road here where they paved the 2 lanes of travel, but they didn't bother to repave the shoulder. So every once in a while, I'm getting pulled over onto the shoulder because of that. There's a difference in height between the shoulder and the lane, which is kind of hilarious. I believe that's supposed to be level, And that's something I learned reading the newspaper growing up in Arkansas, because I would read about some kind of highway project or public works, and they would say, oh, it's, supposed to be $50 million. And then you kind of follow it over a period of years. And then by the time they were done, it ended up cost overruns $100 million. And eventually, and after enough times of it being almost exactly double every time, I finally figured it out. Oh, it actually costs 50 million, but they have to double it so that the politicians are able to steal half, because in the past, when they stole half, but they didn't go over budget, a bunch of them ended up in prison because, the road wasn't built. The road ended up being built so poorly that it was a crime. Right. And I know Arkansas and Louisiana have sent, at times in the past have sent, perhaps the majority of their state legislatures just sent them all to fucking prison, right? If you look at the history of the Deep South, I mean, it's very different than people seem to think it has been. Yeah, quite strange. Quite strange. Yeah, they've been whooping my ass, man. I went in the bathroom at the truck stop this morning, rinsed my eyes out. I don't usually ever have bags under my eyes. I had fucking bags under my eyes. I said, damn, they are running roughshod over old Benton. Goodness gracious. And it's interesting, in these economic times, I bought, because they didn't have any cold brew. I get a free coffee with every 50 gallons of fuel or whatever. But they did not. This one did not have a cold brew coffee machine, so they did have the Starbucks Nitro cold brew in the can. I just went ahead and bought three of them, $16 man. It's like, who cares? Now that the money's starting to stack up, it's like, other than whatever I can manage to grab at Walmart, when is my opportunity to even spend this money? And it's not a problem. I'll save it up and spend it later. But it's sort of a recognition that, yeah, $1,700, $1,800 a month, a week sounds like a lot until but there's no life. There's nothing. When is the being able to enjoy it? Or live like a lot of people live, and maybe take home $650 a week working in a warehouse, and then have a bunch of trying to make rent, trying to make the bills, getting squeezed, trying to go into the gig economy. And then that's where you get all these scams, man. Just in your face scammers everywhere. Just emboldened scammers. When the government is comprised of scammers, and always has been, and the corporations are scammers, the stock market is a scam. Well, I mean, if the being identifies with the realm and, crafting that graven image to uphold before Moloch, well, how is integrity, honor, honesty, doing the so-called right thing? How does that? I don't even see the proper place for that. Like, what are you talking about? It's man versus man. It's dog eat dog. Every man for himself. And probably always has been. Or if there's a reset into some sort of golden age, presumably it always becomes that. This ain't the golden age. That's why all this propaganda has to be blasted up your backside about how, America, greatest country in the history of all humanity. It's not even the richest country on earth. No, it's not. That's crazy. What are you talking about? Google GDP per capita and tell me where America ranks. How is that possibly the richest country? It's not. It's not. Which U.S. state has the highest poverty rate? I believe it's California, isn't it? Oh, and that's by far the so-called richest state, lest we forget. So, does the riches come from how thoroughly can the system prey upon the poor? Is that how the wealth is created? By eating out the substance of the underclass? By preying upon the least capable and the weakest. among society. Seems that way. So then, why would I treat my blessing as if it were a curse and sign myself onto that system any more than I have to? Right. And in fact, seek to validate, my own so-called humanity and to be validated by other so-called humans by how I perform within a world of death and game of lies via vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. And that's what we're talking about. So contextually framed properly, it doesn't make any sense. It's a nonsensical existence externally within the context of what society demands of the individual. Society demands that the individual behave nonsensically, in my opinion. Demands it. Apologies for eating, but I need these blueberries right about now. And a pickup truck just went by, homeless outreach. It looks like law enforcement. So what that is, people can feel good and say, "Oh, our community's, helping the homeless." They drive around and harass homeless people. That's what they do. They tell them, "Well, if you don't want to go to this shelter and you don't want to do this and you don't want to do that, we're taking you to jail, partner." And that's called outreach or outreach. Outreach. So reach out and touch, Jack. We're gonna reach out and touch you, homeless Jack and Jill. Yeah, buddy. Just all this hollow corporate bullshit. You know, looking at just nothing but corporate bullshit on this exit. Although I do enjoy the Walmart, of course, for my purpose. Yeah, it's funny thinking about what these jobs have become in truck driving. Because the bigger companies get the vast majority of the desirable, you know, contract freight. You know, there's a reason why the big companies can hire inexperienced drivers. Is, you know, they have to have a bunch of loads where the person who doesn't really know how to do the job yet has enough time to deliver the load. Right. So that being left for old Benton is, you know, especially with the way things are economically, it's, you know, now it's like a higher level of service. And, um, you know, as far as how much time is allowed to actually get the job done. And, you know, I'm happy to rush it. Not really, I wouldn't call it rushing. I'm happy to make the best time I can make and fight traffic. But then at a certain point, you know, the fatigue level becomes high enough that I just not able to do that. Right. But it doesn't take a lot to just hit this fucking slow lane and just chill out. You know, it's fairly, anybody could do this part pretty much to some extent. There's a Bass Pro Shop. Hell, they're not even open yet. I don't think. 7:30 in the morning. And, you know, this also proves that the worker has no power. The working class doesn't have any power whatsoever. And, you know, union is a bad word. And when I say they don't have any power, I mean generally, collectively. Yes, can you find exceptions? Sure. I'm saying when however many millions of tens of millions of American workers there are, when you add all that up and run the numbers, they don't have power. So ultimately, you know, I can just, especially in trucking when the economics are not favorable to the companies, you know, when economics are favorable to the companies, I can say no to a lot of things that I just simply can't say no to, or I can't say no as often. So, for example, in the past, in a better economic environment, once I make this delivery, I most likely would be like, hey, I'm taking a 34. I'm tired. You don't like it. And not to say this, but the attitude of if you don't like it, that's just, it is what it is. But at this point, I'm going to end up working this weekend, most likely, which is fine. But, you know, again, it's the system can always become a little more efficient by squeezing a little more out of the worker over time. And that's what we see is, you know, corporate profits are now growing at double the rate of GDP growth, which is the rate of the so-called growth of the economy. Well, how does that happen? Well, some of it is through certain advances, but mostly it's by getting less people to do more work. It's ultimately what we're talking about. And there's, the entire system is based upon the desperation of the worker, right? Because, there's seemingly always somebody somewhere in the world who's desperate enough for money, to do the job at the price that the corporation dictates. Because if they could figure out how to pay me half of what I make, that's what they would do, right? If the workers forced the industry to pay double, the industry would pay double. That's just what would happen. Now, if part of the reason why there's so many foreign truck drivers is to prevent that from happening, well, of course, understood. And then people from other countries are going to be less likely to understand or know that it's even possible or desirable for them to stand up. And stand up is not the right framework, but just for them to, to actually organize and to, and really what we're talking about is a refusal to work and just say, well, no, there's going to be a general strike. Well, America doesn't do that. America doesn't just stay home in order to force the government's hand, and the government doesn't do anything that money and power don't force it to do. It has to be forced. And that's what I mean by the worker has no power. That collectively the workers don't wield any power other than what you see the worker able to force the government and the corporations to do or respond to. That's it. It must be demonstrated. It must be made manifest, or it doesn't exist. So the system gets a lot of mileage out of this idea of, the billionaires are scared of the people. No, they're not. They're not scared of the people, but they want the people to think, look out. If they really push things too far, they're going to wake up the sleeping giant, and then the people are going to rise up and fix things or demand change. No, they're not, because the individuals who comprise the masses can't deal with that level of chaos. They can't stay home because they can't deal with the emotional chaos that would cause within them, because they don't have a backbone, they don't have courage, they don't have intestinal fortitude, and the pressures that are already there would just become greater in the short term, right? That's just how it works. And so this idea of, the truckers are going to do this, they're going to do that. No, they're not. They're not going to do anything. Now, maybe they'll have a convoy and it'll end up being a big party and turn into a joke, sure. But, truckers are not going to go on strike. That ain't going to happen. I guess it's Mobile. Yep, Mobile, coming into Mobile. About to go through a tunnel, I think. Yeah, 1.3 miles. Down here by the shipyards and such. There's a battleship over there, over yonder. Beyond battleship. A couple of tall buildings down here. Interesting architectural style. As emerging traffic stops for some reason. Stop it. Whatever. That's not the way to do it. Entering the tunnel. My dispatchers, Mississippi, that I guess they're thinking it should have already been delivered. And part of this is it's not really, these two loads really shouldn't have been combined into one trip. But again, just economically and in the context of all these scams, I mean, they kind of don't have it. Just these guys are just doing whatever they kind of have to do to survive. And then just make it somebody else's problem. And some of that is sometimes they're making it my problem. Sometimes they're making it the broker's problem. And then sometimes the driver's doing that to the company. Sometimes the broker's doing that to the company. This is downtown. I've been here a few times. Not too many. Is that the convention center? Yeah, that's the convention center. Kind of cool looking. Not that y'all can see it. I need a bathroom break. The bathroom. Really need some coffee, unfortunately. All right, we're hitting the grapes now. Oh, yeah. That's what we need. International Trade Center. Yeah, this is a port, after all. It's like a Japanese couple. Yep. Walking down the street. Look to be maybe my age, a little older. Of course, you ain't going to see the man following behind the woman like you see with a lot of these white folks. She knows not to do that. That ain't allowed. It's an old Spanish style building. Kind of cool. With a dome. I don't know what that is. Train station, maybe? Old train station. Damn, I probably have stuff to say. I went got a little too contemplative there, contemplative, as it were. Oh well. Not that I'm drowsy, but y'all can help keep me awake at least in a way. Swampy. We're in the swamps now. Above the swamp, actually. Elevated roadway. And at what point does all this get rebuilt, you know? I wonder when they built this. The 60s, maybe? Vast expanses of, you know, bridges, really. I reckon we're down here near sea, right about sea level. What you see driving a truck is not a whole lot, but you can really see that a lot of this country just ghetto as fuck and always has been. It's just, it is what it is. Slogans. When people are fed, futures are nourished. I don't know, some charity, I guess. Whatever that's supposed to mean. Try to make everybody feel good, I guess. Oh, Mobile City Limit. I didn't realize we left it. I guess I thought we left it and didn't realize we were coming back into it. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Toy Story 5 says Mark Basket. To infinity and beyond yet again. I remember the first couple. I was, I guess, still normie enough to enjoy at least the first couple, I reckon. I was still with ex-wife number one. She was a pretty big fan of all that type of shit. First one was pretty good, as far as I can remember. Been a while. Oh, fuck. Emma. Dropped a grate. It's going to get stepped on. Make a mess. Oh, well. Some panhandlers out here. One of them ain't got a sign. Where is the bathroom break? Might not be one. School zone. The hell? Hmm. There's an old Pizza Hut. Looks like it's been out of business for quite a while. This is such a busy road. They had the cops out there directing traffic, like an actual uniformed police. But I guess maybe it's funny, the school zone probably backs up the traffic. Oh, we got a wreck, maybe? Is that a wreck? On the other side. Oh, maybe that's why he's out here. He's part of it. Oh, yeah, somebody smashed him up. And we're trying to have another smash them up. Watching the way these people are driving. At this point, Mark Basket talking about Toy Story 5. What if you just showed them Toy Story 3 again? Would they even notice a difference? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, I think I might be out of luck on the bathroom stop here. This is not looking like there's anywhere to stop. There's not even a shoulder at this point. In other news, I took a shower yesterday. How about that? Figured it's time to trim the old beard up. I don't shave. Just break out the clippers and chop down whatever's there. Bush hog it. I do like to keep a mustache just because mostly I think it's funny. Oh, I could pull into the Piggly Wiggly. Saw it too late. Oh well. Oh well. Prefer both what? Oh, baths. Well, there you go. Yeah. Been known to take a bath in my time, sure. But I was doing the ice baths for a while, but that was back when I got suckered into that Wim Hof breathing, and I figured out. It took me a few years, but I finally figured out that that's mostly. It's not that it's bullshit. It's actually. It's probably not a good thing overall, in my opinion. The ice baths. I mean, there's definitely a benefit in a way, but that whole thing became kind of a cult anyway. But certainly very meditative, the ice bath. But I would just do it in a, just a bathtub. You can't really get your whole body in there anyway. But gotta have to do the torso and the legs separately. All right, maybe we're gonna have enough of a shoulder up here. Maybe let's see. Looks like my lane's about to end. Mm, that ain't gonna work. Fooey. Shit, that would have worked. One thing about this, it's unless I'm just going to go 15 miles an hour, I end up everywhere I could pull into. By the time I figure it out, it's too late. Some of the stuff that's out of business has been out of business for years. They don't really bother to gate it off or whatever. Some place big enough to accommodate a truck of this size, anyway. Hmm. So if they're building something there, maybe apartments. Hard to say. There's just still doing the terraforming or whatever we call that. With heavy equipment out there tearing, removing the trees and all that. Leveling the ground. It's getting desperate now. Let's see. Walmart. What's this? Oh, that's a coffee place. Yeah. They had enough room, but there's a drive-through, and if I try to go in there and do a U-turn, just create mass confusion. Everybody will immediately freak the fuck out. That's how that typically goes. All right. We're freestyling now. I don't like to freestyle, but we're freestyling. I think I can get in and out of this parking lot of this, whatever this is, shopping center. Yeah, you got it. And it's dead. They're either not open yet or they're just dead. So I don't got to worry about too much there. All right. I think we're going to pull it off. Yeah, we got it. All right. BRB. Keep forgetting to turn the heater off in the sleeper. It's still, even if the fan isn't running, if it's turned to hot, it still heats up back here. So I'm gonna have to try to remember that. Turn it all back all the way cold when I'm done with it in the morning. All right. Hit the road, Jack. Shit. See my chance. Here we go. All right, we made it. Mission accomplished. A person you know, a policy you understand. Lady working for State Farm. Selling insurance. An agent. Your trusted insurance agent. Abba Shriner's Gun Show, November 22nd, 23rd. That reminds me, I do need to call Arkansas before the 1st of December. Make sure that they got my info on my updated DOT medical, physical, or whatever. Should have done that by now. Keep forgetting. Sometimes I'm starting to think maybe I came through here hitchhiking at some point. So sometimes I go through these back roads in these little towns. it starts to look familiar, and I'm like, I think I might have just walked all through here at a certain point. It looks familiar. Hard to say. Could be. Or a combination of short hitchhiking rides and walking. I'd almost bet on it if we had any way to determine it. It looks familiar. This one thing about truck driving, when I talk about all the places I've been, that gets conflated with truck driving. Yeah, some of it, you know, like I've only ever been to Vermont in a big rig and just one time. But a lot of places I've been before I ever drove a truck. We're on what? US Highway 98? Is that what that is? US 98. Brakes making some noise. We have to get them looked at, I guess, at some point. Yeah, I'm beat, man. Beat up from the feet up. What are they growing over there? Right, marijuana. Was Alabama got? They got medical weed. Lost track. I'm assuming so, but who knows? And then all this hemp, I guess they're growing that somewhere. Yeah, I definitely can tell it's my reaction time, all of that. My processing is not as good as normal with respect to the driving. Another reason to slow it down and not get all involved in fighting traffic. That was some gal out here walking. There's a walking trail, you know, it's paved walking trail out there exercising. Strutting her stuff. It's like an old folks home or something. Oh, it's school. Okay, that's what I thought at first. Huh. Private school, probably. Oh, it's a middle school. Damn, that's an impressive looking middle school. Huh. Semmes, Alabama. Semmes. Semmes. In fact, this reminds me of I came through one of these towns traveling, hitchhiking, and some local had what I ended up talking to him at a certain point. I think I ran into him, but He had this sign outside his. He'd made this homemade sign. It said something like "Oprah, please help" or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly. He was going through something. I guess he thought Oprah. He was going to get Oprah's attention. Some old black man. He had some sob story. If it ain't this town, it's one very, very similar. In fact, that you just never know. But I would have sworn I just drove past that house. Could be my mind playing tricks on me. A lot of towns look similar. Well, I guess the internet is working. I believe I switched over to the AT&T since I don't think the Verizon. Maybe I went back. I don't remember. Might still be on Verizon. They gave me a 2-month trial where I could try out this multi-network deal with US Mobile. So my main phone number is on Verizon, but then if I'm in an area where Verizon data is not working well, I can switch over to AT&T. But I think I might switch that out for T-Mobile. A lot of places, the AT&T is just trash. I've noticed. But it's deprioritized data, so that's probably the reason. Deprioritized. A Connors Reservoir. Help protect it. I didn't realize it was in danger. Has best Japan apparently a big bathing culture. For whatever reason. If I get some time off, I'll tell you what, I might for a song shoulder. Again, it's that good pain and that healing, but man, it's all jacked up. Oh, we hurting for certain. Something else about truck driving and just or driving back roads when I had a car. For whatever reason, I almost never end up following a bunch of people. I'm almost always the lead vehicle for whatever reason. Still haven't figured out why that is. Not 100%, but more often than not. By the 10th Dollar General I passed today. That thing is jam packed. Here's a Family Dollar. Ain't nobody over there. Probably just the workers, 2 cars. Yep, this boiled peanut shack. That's what I was just thinking. I definitely got picked up hitchhiking at that. There's a boiled peanut place. I was just thinking if I see boiled peanuts, because I was starting to think, man, I'm almost certain I got picked up hitchhiking at that gas station. And I was like, if there's boiled peanuts, yep, some old woman probably was pretty attractive back in her day, picked me up. Probably dropped me off in that town where I thought everything looked familiar. Yeah, man, we've been here. Yes, sir. Pretty cool. I didn't realize I came this far south on that trip. If it's the same trip I'm thinking of. Huh. I must have went back up because I know I didn't go to Florida, so I must have went back up all the way back up towards Atlanta after that. I guess I'd have to look at the map. Boiled peanuts. Yeah, hot baths good for the muscles. Yeah, I think actually both. Contrast cold and hot, kind of go back and forth maybe. A lot of athletes do. When they're training or whatever, maybe after their training or football or whatever, they do the ice baths for inflammation. Supposedly, I don't know. I've been looking at some bodybuilding. And I've never heard anybody saying anything about ice. You could call it a sport. That's interesting. I find it interesting undertaking bodybuilding. There's a lot to it. And of course, with Arnold Schwarzenegger being involved in the earlier, or a certain part of the history of it, the politics, right? The political side. I find that part less interesting, but it's certainly a factor, or has been. On the big road, looks like maybe some divided. So maybe that lady dropped me off back there at Old Peanuts. I wouldn't really know if I wouldn't have been able to remember if I got picked up or dropped off. Be one or the other. If I got this far south and then what's going north, that might make a little more sense. I don't know. Probably should have kept the journal. Oh, this is one of those a fun left turn. That's just what we needed today. These fairly challenging left turns. Can't see shit, Captain. Yeah, we're good. We're good. $65. All right. I'll take it. Buffalo, I'm sure, right? The heat, not bad. Connective tissue, I don't know. Actually, I really haven't looked into it that much. Leaving Alabama, entering Mississippi. Parts of Mississippi and parts of Louisiana, probably the most similar to where I'm from in Arkansas, at least parts of other states. Anyway. This road reminds me of going to spring break when I think I was a freshman in college. Maybe we went on this road for part of it. Went to Florida. Went to Daytona, actually. Me and some new friends. I really hadn't known these people too long, but we drove my car. It's funny back then, no MapQuest or whatever. Or maybe there was. Actually, no, there wouldn't have been. Trying to think of how we would have chosen the route. I guess somebody probably just word of mouth had some directions, maybe. I don't know. Probably just had them written down. Yeah, whatever that trance was I went into yesterday when I was driving. It's almost like I was dreaming while I was awake. Again, waking dreams, surrealistic unreality. But I was aware of it also as it was happening. Got pretty deep into what seemed like a dreamlike state anyway. But after that, I could tell something was going on with my physicality, and I really did a lot of pretty intense just movements with my right shoulder. So much so I'm pretty sore in those areas today. So probably a good thing overall. I suspect. I expect. Might eventually get almost all of this inflammation out of here, maybe. I still got a decent amount in the actual shoulder joint. Not near as much as there used to be. And the range of motion is pretty close to normal at this point, I would say. Not quite, but compared to what it was, yeah, not. There's still a few directions where it's somewhat limited, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I think I injured at weightlifting when I was a teenager, being an idiot, probably using way too much weight. Sounds like something I would have done. So I'll have some of these prunes. Actually, let's have some water first. I seem to do better if I drink water first and then wait like 10 minutes. I'll spare you the details, but things have been going pretty well and with the old movements, to get my drift. Here we go. Jesus 2024, our only hope. Yep, I knew this light was going to change. I was already slowing down. I knew she was about to change. I could feel it. Mm-hmm. Pedro's Lawn Care. All right. Bit on the nose, don't you think? Yeah. Man, stretching my shoulder. Woo-wee. Rocky Creek Barnes said, I think our deals. Come on. Well, the body has recovered from the fatigue, but the mental fog is there big time. Feel all zoned out. Yeah, wait for the old semi to come on through, and then everybody go ahead and pull on out there. This is an interesting phenomenon where it's like some people can't pull out if just nothing's coming. It's I watched him the whole way. It's like he waited for me to get there and then pulled out. It's always a strange thing. Maybe he thinks he's going to snuggle up to the rear of the trailer. So if I put like my forearm in front of me, where like if I had my forearm sort of blocking my torso, have, my elbow at a 90-degree angle. And then if I reach so that's my right arm. If I reach across to the left side of my body, that's where a lot of the problems are. First thing people think is rotator cuff, but now maybe it got injured and just he didn't heal up right. That's possible, but if there's actually anything wrong with it at this point, other than weakness, perhaps. It hurts, but not so much that it's torn, I don't think. But again, like I say, it could have been torn years ago and just healed however it healed. Who knows? No expert on the shoulder, but there's a labrum in there somewhere. So it sounds like, of course, is that part of the rotator cuff? I probably ought to. I don't know. I don't want to bore y'all any further. I might be out of shit to say. All right, I'm gone. Bye.